Nice to see you all again. Um, as always, I want to invite you to make yourselves comfortable, make yourselves at home, presuming you're at home or somewhere comfortable. And that includes your posture. So find a posture that's easy for you. You can recline, you can lie down or curl up in a ball, whatever works for you. Or you can stand up. You're welcome to do a walking meditation, whatever you like. And also, you're allowed to change postures during this talk and during the meditation. You don't have to be still the whole time. If you need to wiggle or move, how would it be to give yourself permission to wiggle or move? And you can leave your eyes open if that's right for you. You can close your eyes. You can turn your screen off if you don't feel like having your screen on, whatever works. All right. Today, I'd like to continue our exploration of the five hindrances. Um, So this is our fourth session about the hindrances. And today we're talking about restlessness and worry. So in the Pali language, one of the words that is used is udaka. And literally, udaka means to shake. It's like a state of agitation and overexcitement or distraction. So this often gets translated as restlessness, udaka, restlessness, because that restlessness kind of encapsulates all those qualities of agitation or excitement. And if we consider the word restlessness, it literally means without rest. So it can be quite uncomfortable, and it can be difficult to pay attention to. And we tend to keep ourselves in constant activity so we don't have to notice the restlessness itself or confront the underlying causes of restlessness. And it can be expressed physically in our bodies. We can get physically uncomfortable or fidgety or need to move incessantly. Um, and often if we're at home by ourselves and no one's looking, we'll probably just get up and stop meditating and go on a walk or do something different. Um, and also, outside of the context of meditation, it just manifests as just being really distractible and changing activities often or multitasking, that kind of stuff. And in our minds, it's expressed as being scattered or incessantly thinking, again, just being distracted and unable to focus. So, this is what the meditators call monkey mind. So, it's like a monkey swinging from a branch to branch, like the mind swings from thought to thought. It's incessantly reaching for the next thought or distraction, and it's not hanging on to any one branch or one thought for very long. And so restlessness can often disguise itself from us during deep meditation. We enter these deep states of peace or relaxation or equanimity, and our mind can get really excited and it gets amazed by the experience itself. And then instead of just continuing to be here in the moment, we start thinking about it. Wow, this is incredible. My mind is so still. I'm not having any thoughts right now. How did I get here? I hope this lasts forever. Maybe if I do X, Y, and Z, I can bring this home with me and this will just be my normal state from now on. Um, so that's a form of restlessness. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Some nodding, some hands, yeah. So restlessness itself can be a symptom of not being able to be present with ourselves or with something that's uncomfortable. And it's similar to how we talked about sloth and torpor last month. Sometimes a sloth and torpor is kind of disguising something that's uncomfortable or painful. And um, so we'll talk about how to work with that. The Buddha often talked about udaka, restlessness, together with kukuka, which is a really fun word to say, kukuka. And that's the translation of that is worry or anxiety. And Gil Fronsdale says, classically, it's explained as the agitated feelings of regret for what one has done or not done in the past. So this is, our typical anxious thought of, oh, I wish I didn't say that. I can't believe I did that, right? And we begin to shame ourselves and overthink the interactions we had or our behavior. Has anyone ever had a thought like that, or is it just me? Yeah. So we tend to imagine future scenarios that have not arisen yet, and often never do. We play out all kinds of terrifying stories. We imagine something bad happening to us, to ourselves, or our loved ones, or our people, or the whole world. So I'm sure that sounds familiar as well. Lots of nodding. Um, so on some level, I like to honor this because this propensity for humans, this is our survival strategy. This is what human brains have done and developed an ability to do over the millennia. And our brains have developed the ability to create virtual realities. So we're imagining different scenarios. And then we try to manifest the best one or try to avoid the most scary one or the most harmful one. So that's this amazing thing that our brain learned how to do um, over time. And our ancestors who were not so good at it, they were maximum chill. They were just relaxing under the coconut tree. And they died because a coconut fell on their head. And so they couldn't pass on their genes. And our ancestors, who couldn't relax and they were always anxious that something bad might happen and they were hyper vigilant. um, those ancestors survived because they dodged the coconut. They couldn't fully relax. They couldn't like close their eyes, and they were hyper vigilant, and they were looking out for coconuts, and so they lived. And those genes got passed on, the hyper vigilant kind of anxious genes. I mean, that's a kind of a simplification, but that's more or less how it worked. Those, our primate ancestors and our human ancestors who are really good at this, looking out for danger and also imagining scenarios. They survived, and we inherited those genes. So, as we talked about in the past, the brain tends to overdo it. So we tend to do this far more than is actually required for our survival, especially in our modern time. And so while it might actually help our survival, it certainly is detrimental to our happiness and our peace of mind. So as you probably know by now, many of you, I like to frame a lot of these hindrances as expressions of our biology. Um, One, I believe it's true. Any state of mind is directly related to our physiology and our biology. And this applies to humans, all humans everywhere. Um, and and also it helps to depersonalize our experiences. I used to actually think that I was the only one with a restless mind. I'd sit in meditation. I'd think, wow, this teacher is so clear. They're so enlightened. They must not have any thoughts or feelings. Or, wow, that practitioner is way better than I am. Look how still and peaceful they are. Um, and yeah, I found out that we all do this, and it kind of was a revelation for me. And even our teachers do that. I was on retreat years ago, and one of the teachers finally he admitted to the meditation hall full of 100 people. I think a student was kind of glorifying this teacher and saying something about how realized they were, and he was very honest and humble. And he said, "You don't want any part of what's going on up here. My mind is just as crazy as your mind, and maybe even more. This is just what the human mind does, and it can be helpful to normalize it and once we stop taking everything personally and stop shaming ourselves for our natural human tendencies, we have the possibility of relaxing and observing our tendencies and not believing every thought or feeling. strong restlessness and regret or worry and anxiety, they can prevent our minds from feeling quiet enough to stay relaxed and focused during meditation. And occasionally, these experiences can be powerful enough that meditation doesn't help. And it's actually not a good idea. It's actually contraindicated. Sometimes it just doesn't help to try to pay attention to the mind when all we can do is obsess and overthink or perseverate. So in these cases, we need some kind of intervention other than meditation. So therapy, psychotherapy, or trauma therapy, body work, yoga, asana, diet, exercise, breath work, all kinds of things, medication. I don't know if I said medication. So pharmaceutical medication, sometimes we just need that, or herbal medicine. And lots of things can help interrupt the cycle. And then we might have enough resources where meditation could be supportive again. So there's kind of a big caveat. Since I'm talking about the word anxiety, I don't want to presume that meditation is the answer for everyone's anxiety. There's a lot going on with anxiety, and we need to really find all of our resources that might help with that. And often restlessness and worry and anxiety, it can be worked through with meditation. So in fact, that's the reason why a lot of people start meditating, is because they're feeling anxious and they need to just try to relax that part of themselves. So first, it's essential to know the causes of restlessness and worry. This is the typical order of operations here with the hindrances. What are some of the causes? Unwise attention to our thoughts or to mental states. So that is giving too much attention to anxious thoughts or thoughts in general. So there's nothing wrong with thinking or nothing wrong with thoughts, but we can give them too much credence. So this especially applies to those of us who have a tendency to overthink and overanalyze. Um, Joseph Goldstein tells a funny story about Sariputta, who he was one of the two chief disciples of the Buddha, and apparently he had a great mind and he was a great analytical powers, but this slowed his progress down. Um, and after hearing the teachings of the Buddha, it took Sariputta 2 weeks to become fully enlightened. 2 weeks, whereas uh, Moggallana, the other disciple, it only took him 1 week because he wasn't so much in his mind. So Joseph writes that in his book, Mindfulness. And I'm not sure if he intended it to be funny, but to me, it's really funny. It took him 2 weeks. He had to wait 2 weeks to be fully enlightened. I'm happy to wait that long if I have to. Um, it sounds pretty easy. Okay, other factors that lead to the rising of restlessness and worry. So, unwise attention to situations in the world. So, this is a big one for us right now. So, it doesn't mean we shouldn't pay attention to the world and to other people and to what's going on. Um, I think it just means that we should focus our attention on the wisdom that leads to the correct responses rather than get progressively more and more agitated. Um, I'm sure we can all relate to that state of like, getting upset about something and then it kind of inside it just spirals out of control and it prevents us sometimes from taking wise action. So that would be considered unwise attention to the situations in the world, like getting upset about things without translating that into wise action. Also, too much talking can contribute to restlessness. So the antidote is silence. So, but this also applies to communication, email and text. Basically, any too much outward communication, it agitates the mind. So if we find ourselves, in our life having periods of time where we're feeling more anxious or agitated, one simple remedy is just having a period of silence. And for me, that's always been the best medicine. Even if it's just for a day, just like silence for a day or a weekend, or ideally 7 days, that really works for me. Also, um, dwelling on unskillful actions. So what did I do, or what didn't I do? And our imaginations can run pretty wild with memories and replaying, moments in our lives and how we should have behaved or what we should have said or not said. And it can become pretty obsessive at times. How many times do I have to watch the same terrible replay of something that I did, right? So, yeah, it doesn't help, and it just kind of fuels and it leads to more restlessness and worry and anxiety. Also, another one is judging our spiritual progress or comparing ourselves to others, or comparing ourselves to where we think we should be in our development. After we begin to understand the causes of the arising of restlessness and worry, the next step is to know the conditions um, that remove restlessness and worry. In other words, what do we do with this? How do we actually work with it? So, as always, these practices are really, practical. It's very oriented. What can I do? The first step, as usual, um, the process of transforming restlessness and worry begins with mindfulness. So noticing that it's happening and making it the object of our attention. So what is it actually like to feel restless or worried? Instead of just being taken over by these feelings or thoughts, what is this experience like that I'm calling restlessness or anxiety? And can I be with this? Can I just notice this experience? The Buddha was quoted in the suttas to say, if restlessness and worry is present, one knows there is restlessness and worry. If restlessness and worry is not present, one knows there is no restlessness and worry. Kind of the simplest statement. And basically, all of his mindfulness statements are like that. It's like you can just drop in any state. And this is the process. Like, if it's present, can I be aware that it's present? And if it's not present, can I be aware that it's not present? I'm not feeling restless right now. I'm noticing my calmness or my lack of anxiety. So the first thing I find interesting in that translation is the translation uses the word is instead of are. I don't know if you heard that. So if restlessness and worry is present, you know, we're talking about two words or two conditions, and I'd expect it to say if restlessness and worry are present, but they're grouped together as one thing. So it's similar to sloth and torpor, what we talked about last month. They arise together. So the Buddha talked about them together, restlessness and worry. So they kind of arise in the mind and in the body in the same moment. Gil Fronsdale also talks about this quality of mindfulness of the hindrances. He says, having a hindrance is like wandering through a maze staring at the ground. Being mindful is like standing above the maze to get an overview. Without eliminating a hindrance, mindfulness gives us a better perspective of what is happening. So this practice, it gives us a way to get an aerial view of what's happening. And this takes us out of our kind of the intensity of the personal experience. So paying attention to restlessness and worry, it does not mean that we follow each train of thought and go down every rabbit hole to see where it might lead. Following the anxious thoughts and obeying what our restlessness commands us to do is not so helpful. So to be mindful of restlessness and anxiety, there's a couple of things that are helpful. One is to feel it physically in our bodies, if it feels safe to do so. Sometimes it doesn't feel right, but if we can notice our physical sensations, what is it like? There's a lot of energy coursing through the body. It's like maybe there's tightness, or maybe there's like a bouncy feeling, or maybe I'm like feeling jittery, or this quality of like jumping out of my own skin. So Can I feel what that physical sensation is like, and can I just be with that? And sometimes we can use a really wide zoom lens. We can zoom out and like see the whole body. And what is this whole body feeling like in this entire complex of feelings? Or we can really get focused and just focus on our breath. And just, even though I'm feeling restless, I'm going to notice what restlessness is like when I'm paying attention to breath. So, one small object to focus on. And that can be helpful because the more we cultivate our concentration and our attention, the more easy it is to let these hindrances come and go. And that's not always easy to do, easy to say, but restlessness will try to convince us to do literally anything else. We're gonna the mind will, in our restless state, will convince us that we should be up or going on a hike or doing our taxes or whatever. Um, but if we can sit still and if we can observe, then it often will settle down on its own. So it's similar to working with pain or any other difficulty. If we notice it, we realize that when we notice it, when we pay attention, it changes. And of course, as always, the big qualification is when I bring my attention to this experience, can I really be with this? Um, and asking myself that question, can I be with this anxiety or this restlessness? And if it's too much and it's kind of overtaking me, that it's not really helpful to just sit and keep focusing on it. And then, like we've talked about before, it's healthy to just let it go and do something else, or allow ourselves to be distracted, or allow ourselves to um, focus on something that's easier and not so difficult. Other tricks that can help. We can use mental notes. So the simplest mental notes that are recommended for things like this is like you just use the word restlessness or worry. So a soft mental note, we don't want to like get too much into the words, but just a soft mental note helps us notice it, and then we can not get taken by the experience, and we can come back to feeling our breath, physical body, or whatever is available to us. We can also use like a phrase like restlessness is like this. Restlessness is like this. So that is like just identifying the experience, and this is what restlessness is like. It's not my restlessness. It's just restlessness is like this. And it's not I'm restless. So these are the some of the practices that can help us disidentify with our experience, because that's what we really want. We don't want to um, blame ourselves or identify too strongly with what we're experiencing. So the phrase that works for me is not me, not mine. So this is not me, it's just a feeling, and it's not mine. I don't own it. It didn't come from me. It's just here. It just has arisen. So restlessness, not me, not mine. And if you like, you can even use the Pali word, and that depersonalizes it even more because it's fun to say. You can say udaka. If you're feeling restless, you can just say udaka, and then it like kind of interrupts the mental chatter. Or you can say kukuka, because that's even more fun to say, kukuka. And then if you say something like that, it sounds so silly. How could it not just like, for at least a moment, interrupt your process? Um, I like that one. Another thing that might help is we can open our eyes. So if we're meditating and our eyes are closed and we're in this crazy story experience, we can open our eyes, and then we kind of are no longer lost in our inner world, and we can focus on something and focus on something in our room or in our physical surroundings, and that brings us into the present moment. And ideally, we look at something pleasant, like a tree or um, a flower or a pretty photograph or something pleasing, or at least neutral, um, and and that can help. Some of the other suggestions that come up are we can practice wise reflection. So, why are we doing this? You know, uh, we remember that the our fundamental motivation for our meditation practice or our spiritual practice is for the liberation of all beings everywhere. It's so that all beings can be free from greed and hatred and delusion. I mean, that's the big umbrella why. That's our intention, is to, so everyone can be free. And it can be inspiring to remember that it's not just about us and our little worlds and our little stories and our little minds. And we have this greater intention. That can make it easier to connect with the objects of our attention, and it can be motivating. And likewise, we can reflect on our commitment towards loving kindness or ethical conduct, and reminding ourselves that this is important to us. That can help give us some compassion for ourselves and some self-forgiveness, and let go of some of the movies that are playing about all of our unskillful actions, or these thoughts of not good enough or what's going to happen. And finally, um, one of the last recommendations is it can be helpful to remember that awareness is always present. So this is a concept that I really love, and I wish I remembered it more often in my like waking daily life. Um, Awareness is not something we need to create. It's there. That kind of presence and consciousness is here. It doesn't come from inside of us. This is something that we all have access to, um, but we don't create it. We simply have to remember that it's there and recognize it, and then just come back to it, pay attention to it. And so that, like, remembering that, it takes away the struggle for me. It's like, um, it takes away the effort because it's already here. And this is one of the things that Joseph Goldstein likes to say: already aware. Or he says, it's already here. Yeah. So that's a lot. That's a mouthful that I just kind of said. But let's practice with this. So I propose we sit in silence, more or less. I'll give a few little cues, but more or less silence. About 15 minutes, we'll sit together. I'll give a couple reminders, but mostly I'll just kind of be quiet. So again, I invite you to be comfortable, whatever that looks like for you. You can sit upright, your spine relaxed and tall, spacious. You can recline on a chair. You can lie down. Whatever you feel that you need in order to really relax. You're free to open your eyes with a soft gaze on the floor in front of you. Or you can close your eyes. And we begin with just some basic cultivating attention. So I invite you to pay attention to your breath. What is it like to breathe? I notice my breathing without changing it or manipulating it at all. might choose to make the object of my attention my body or my physical sensations. So I might notice where my body is touching my chair or cushion, the floor. Maybe my hands are touching my hands, or hands are resting on my thighs. So what is it like to notice the touch points where my body is touching? I might notice areas of tension or pain, or maybe it's spacious and relaxed and open. Whatever it is, can I just be with this? Can I be with this? So now we heed the Buddha's advice when he says, if restlessness and worry is present, one knows there is restlessness and worry. If restlessness and worry is not present, one knows restlessness and worry is not present. So can I pay attention to these qualities, worry or anxiety or restlessness, as they arise? Can I notice these qualities in their absence? I notice the relaxation or the stillness. If there is restlessness, can I just be aware of it and use a soft mental note? Restlessness is like this. It's not me, it's not mine. Restlessness is like this. Is it possible to acknowledge this quality of awareness that's always here? Awareness is always here, already aware, already here. I don't have to do anything. I just have to remember and notice, pay attention. Quality of awareness is also not me and not mine. It's just here. When you're ready, you can begin to wiggle your toes or your fingers. Maybe give your spine a little movement. You might open your eyes or begin to come back into your physical room or environment. Thank you for sharing that practice with me. Anyone have a question or reflection or comment? Siri.
So, I got a little confused on the Buddha's quote about restlessness or worry. Like, if you notice it, then it's present, and if you don't notice it, it's not present. Is that like I'm walking outside and it's raining? So, raining is happening, and I have nothing to do with it. So, like, I am not generating restlessness or worry. I am not participating in it. I just happen to be in it, and then it'll pass. Is that what he's
That's
saying?
definitely part of it. Yeah, that's definitely part of the general idea. And then the other idea is similar to the invitation that we sometimes hear from the teachers. Um, Sit and know that you're sitting. So it's okay, I'm just sitting. This is the most basic experience, but I am aware that I'm sitting. What is it like to be sitting? Or if I'm doing a walking meditation, walking and know that I'm walking. So can I bring my attention to this experience of walking? So it's also like that with restlessness and worry. Um, if restlessness and worry are present, can I know that they're present? So what is like really know with a capital K? Can I know? So what is that like to really be in that experience? Instead of like having it be on the back burner subconsciously and it's motivating and driving my speech and actions. I'm actually with it.
Okay, so it's not saying anything about you're creating it and thus you can stop creating it. It's more just a noticing. That's like the level it's at.
Yes, it's actually, it probably would say you can't stop creating it directly.
Okay.
Yeah, probably it's more like just paying attention and then it changes because all things change. But we're not the controllers of when those come in. It's like they come from outside of us almost.
Okay.
Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Any other thoughts, questions, reflections?
David, you said that it was sort of a big one that people tend to focus on the world and what's going on out there that can't be helped. We don't have a solution, and yet it feels heavy, feels like a weight. And I experience that a lot. That I
Yeah.
just can't free my mind from fear, anxiety about the state of the world, and I keep trying to say there's nothing I can do about it in this moment. I'm aware that it's there. I can't do anything about it in this moment, so let it go. But that's so much easier said than done. And I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if you have any more to say about that form of restlessness.
What I have to say is that your experience is it's so common. Yeah. So I just want to validate that. That's really, a lot of us are going through that. And it's natural to care. And the fact that you care about what's happening in the world is just a reflection of your compassion and your kindness. And so we don't want to, throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? um, and so if you can appreciate that about you when you're caring and maybe focus on that, like, man, I care so much right now. Um, I feel this suffering and it's hard to feel suffering. And so maybe that can help shift the attention. Um, because yeah, again, like I said, it's not that we want to stop paying attention, but we want to pay attention to a degree that it's helpful, you know. So I'm not sure there's like an easy, quick answer for that other than like to keep paying attention and then see if you can um, focus on the wise action part and focus on like really what is you're paying attention and that anxiety, coming from, which is coming from love.
Okay, thank you.
Wow. Always a honor and a pleasure to practice with you all. Thank you for joining me and joining us. And yeah. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to share, and this is kind of in line with Irv's last comments. This is a really kind of baseline. This is really common for me. Like I'm so familiar with restlessness and worry and anxiety. It's like such a core part of my experience as a human. And last month I was talking about sloth and torpor, and I feel with sloth and torpor, like I was admitting that I need to really explore this more. It's like not so close to home. And this one is like, it's just so, yeah, it's just so normal. Um, and so I feel like it's really helpful to bring attention to it because it's, for a lot of us, it's such a big part of our human experience. Yeah. Okay. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Next month, I can't do next month. I'm going to be teaching in Austria. So I'm going to just skip July and we'll do August. So the first Wednesday of August. Okay. Thank you.